Hey guys, John V here from Phone Reno. Right now you're watching our in-depth video review of the HTC 8X for AT&T. It's going to be one of the very first Windows Phone 8 devices to come to market, and it has a very stylish looking design, something not typical we've seen out of HTC's camp, and it's complemented by the wide array of color options that's available in. And on top of that, some beefy specs still. You have a 4.3-inch Super LCD 2 display, 720p resolution. You're going to have 4G LTE connectivity and also a dual-core processor. So all the stuff that you'd want to find in any high-end device. And most importantly, you have the new Windows Phone 8 experience on here. So we're going to check out how that fares and whether or not the HTC 8X can really step up to the challenge. So at first glance, some would believe that HTC took a bit out of Nokia's playbook just because the 8X looks very similar to some of the Nokia Lumia handsets out there on the surface. But as we closely look at it, it's a very different looking handset, unique on its own, and it's part of the reason why the HTC 8X stands out. It's in stark comparison to the colder industrial designs we've seen put out by HTC, and we definitely like where they're going with this Windows Phone 8 device. It's very attractive, especially with the color options available to it. It adds a sense of character to the device. On top of that, very comfortable to hold in the hand just because it has some contoured edges which converge together towards the back. Really gives it a good grip in the hand. On top of that, it maintains a very clean appearance thanks to the soft touch material, and it's pretty svelte, lightweight, and also has a good durability to it. It has all the qualities we'd love about any stylish looking handset. Complementing its stylish design, the HTC 8X features a modest-sized 4.3-inch 720p Super LCD 2 panel, so that's 720 by 1280 pixels, and when you factor in the size, it has a superb amount of pixel density, one of the highest out there on any display. And even as we look at the web page from a zoomed out view, we're able to make out some fine text, a lot of detail and clarity with it, and seeing that it is a Super LCD 2 panel in play, it has all those qualities we love about it. For example, you have those warmer, rich-looking color tones, wide viewing angles, and it's pretty easy to use also in outdoor conditions, so it definitely helps to make the handset stand out. As usual, the 8X features the same trio of Windows capacitor buttons below its display, and they're spaced far away from one another to reduce any accidental presses. Yet again, showing some balance to its design, we like the colored earpiece on the handset, and nearby to that, you have the wide-angle, front-facing 2-megapixel camera. As much as we adore the handset's uniform and clean-looking design, we're not fans of its physical buttons, both the dedicated power button and also the volume control, just because they're flush and very hard to feel out. On the other hand, we really appreciate that the handset offers a 2-level shutter key, so you can quickly launch the camera UI at any time by long pressing on it. So rounding things out, the handset also features around its trim a 3.5mm headset jack and noise cancellation microphone. You have the micro SIM slot right there. You need a removable tool to gain access to it. And you also have the micro USB port, standard microphone. With the USB port, you only get data and charging connectivity. In the rear, we find the handset's 8-megapixel autofocus camera, which features HTC's ImageSense technology and an f2.0 lens. It also has 1080p video recording and also an LED flash. And towards the bottom edge here, you have these microdots, which are in unison to one another, and they consist of the handset's speaker grille. As you probably tell from the logo right there, the handset also features Beats audio support, which amplifies the volume output of the 3.5mm headset jack and also a speaker. With its unibody construction, there's no access to its 1800 mAh battery, nor does the handset offer a micro SD card slot. At long last, we're finally able to experience Windows Phone 8 in all of its glory here on the HTC 8X, but quite frankly, we gotta say, we're rather disappointed with the overall outcome, just because it's kind of lacking some much-needed improvements to really separate itself from the previous experience we found with Mango. Sure, there are some new visual, improvements, for example, here at the start screen, but beyond that, we're going to show you why it hasn't really leapfrogged versus the previous versions. The biggest noticeable change with Windows Phone 8 is definitely the start screen here. Whereas before it was only taking up a small strip of the display, it's now full size, so it takes advantage of that. It definitely comes off as an appealing thing just because you have all these dynamic live tiles doing some other things, whether it be aggregating information or just having some neat effect to it. There's still also a decent amount of personalization to an extent. Now that the live tiles, you can resize them to 3 different options here, whether you have the full 1 right there, half or even the quarter one right there. So it's pretty nice having that. And of course, you could always move them around to your liking. But the wallpaper, there's no background wallpaper still like that, but it's only available in the lock screen. If you happen to be a veteran Windows Phone user, you might have a difficult time trying to distinguish what's new found with the experience here in Windows Phone 8 on the HTC 8X, but there are a few notable ones we'll go through here. For example, the lock screen, you have now some detailed information in terms of notifications, but it's still kind of lacking in terms of the comprehensive features found with rival platforms, and its execution still kind of, again, pales in comparison. So if you want to change the notifications, you have to go into the settings here. And from here, you can only select one for detailed status information. So you have the small listing right there, which gives you, detailed information. So if someone's birthday coming up, if you have an appointment, it'll show it in the lock screen. And in addition to that, you could select up to five different quick statuses here, but they mainly just display the amount of notifications for each particular application. As for some of the other core organizer apps with the HTC 8X and Windows Phone 8 in general, they're nothing too different from what we've seen previously, but again, there are just a very few or a handful of new features. For example, you have the People Hub, which is the same exact thing as before. You could browse your address book. It'll aggregate social networking statuses, whether it be from Twitter or from Facebook, and you have two new features here. The first one being Rooms, which allows you to privately invite someone so you can share your calendars, your photos, and notes all in a single place. And you have the Groups feature where you could actually select who you want to be in your group, so you could instantly message everyone at the same time, or even view their social networking statuses. Just like before, if you hold down the back button on the handset, you're going to get the panes here, which shows you the open application, so you quickly multitask between them. Meanwhile, if you press the search capacitor button, it's going to instantly run Bing Search. You could search the web, and in addition to that, you have other features like Scout, so you could search for local restaurants near you. You could also tag music here, and even have the Vision function, which allows you to scan barcodes, QR codes, and even other items. Even though there's nothing new to be found with the messaging experience on the HTC 8X and Windows Phone, we still like the on-screen keyboard has to offer, just because with its screen size, it offers for a nice spacious layout. On top of that, very responsive, and finally, it offers one of the better autocorrect features out there. Likewise, we could say the same thing about the email experience here, just because, again, nothing really new, same exact layout, presentation style as before. It would have been nice to see a new select all function, so you don't have to worry about selecting everything manually. But besides that, it's still very easy to use, simple setup too, and it works well. Just as we know playing around with Windows Phone devices in the past, it doesn't require that much processing power to actually perform well. And that's the same thing we're going to find here with the HTC 8X and Windows Phone 8. The handset is powered by a dual-core 1.5 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Plus processor with 1 GB of RAM, and honestly, it might not really enthrall us just like what you find on some quad-core devices out there, but regardless of that, it still provides for one fluid and instantaneous performance in pretty much all aspects. So whether you're opening up applications, surfing the web, or even playing game, it maintains that fluid rate throughout everything. With Windows Phone 8, it features Internet Explorer 10, and of course the HTC 8X also packs 4G LTE connectivity, so you get faster data speeds. But beyond that, it still has a wonderful web browsing experience, especially because of the highly detailed displayed on here. It makes for just a wonderful experience. Not only does it maintain those same fluid navigational controls, but pages load up, and everything just comes together to offer us one refined experience. Some of the new things you'll find with the web browser and Internet Explorer 10 is the fact that you have the ability to share pages through messaging, email, or even social networks. And on top of that, they finally brought back the Find On Page feature, which was gone when Windows Phone Mango arrived. Of all things, Windows Phone 8 is still lacking some quality third-party applications to make it a standout competitor against some of the other mobile platforms out there. So for example, you have things like the Bing Maps experience. It doesn't quite trump the Google Maps experience that we find with Android, and its set of features barely graces what Google Maps has to offer. On top of that, HTC's presence is kind of lacking just because there's nothing really prevalent with it. You have the HTC hub here, but it does nothing more than just aggregates the weather, the stocks, and even the news. Same exact experience that we've seen on previous HTC Windows phones out there. And finally, just another example of why it's lacking quality apps. For example, the YouTube application for Windows Phone does nothing more than just launch the Internet Explorer 10 browser and redirects us to their mobile-friendly website. By now, we would have liked to see some sort of better execution with that. Hardly a shocker, the music player here with Windows Phone 8 is the same exact one we've seen on previous versions. It still has that slick-looking interface here with the interface formerly known as Metro. As you're playing a song, it displays some detailed information, for example, the album cover, the track information, and on-screen controls. As far as the audio quality of the speaker, though, it's kind of lacking with its volume output, but luckily the audio output is amplified when you have Beats audio enabled, so if you put in a pair of headphones, we definitely notice some punchier tones. Obviously, we can't complain about the video watching experience on the HTC 8X just because it has a beautiful looking screen and it actually is able to play high definition videos with no fluff at all, just like the one we have here, which is encoded in DivX 1920 by 1080 resolution. You can tell moving at a good rate, nice punchy colors, good details, so it's more than usable. So here's the camera UI on the HTC 8X, and it's just like other Windows phones and Windows Phone devices in the past. Very clean looking interface here. If you swipe to the right, you could gain access to the camera roll, so you could preview stuff very quickly. As far as settings options and scene modes, it's the same amount that we've seen before. You could apply different effects, change the resolution, the ISO, exposure, and all that, but it's missing some key contemporary features, for example, multi-burst shot, and even the ability to snap photos while shooting video. No question about it, the handset's 8-megapixel autofocus camera can get the job done when it comes to taking outdoor shots, just because it's able to produce some average-looking details and some natural-looking colors, and it takes some very nice-looking macro shots as well, but unfortunately, it doesn't do that great in low-lighting situations. We would expect a little bit more, knowing that it has a f2.0 lens in the back there, so you kind of assume that's going to take some better shots, but unfortunately, that's not the case, just because it produces some lower-quality details, and it doesn't handle dynamic range that well, though we have to say that it's not as noisy compared to some other devices out there. As far as its LED flash is concerned, it manages to add some hard lighting, which tends to oversaturate the photos. As for its 1080p high-definition video recording, again, it's more than usable for most occasions. It has some sharp-looking details, it moves fluidly at 29 frames per second, and it doesn't have too much artifacting when panning very quickly. But some of the noticeable distractions that we find is the very slow exposure adjustment. And top of that, in windy conditions, it tends to have a fair amount of distortion with audio recording. Call quality is nearly perfect on the HTC 8X just because with its earpiece produces a very strong volume output and voices on both ends of the line are clear and distinctive, no evidence of any background noise or distortion. Unfortunately though, we can't say the same thing about its speakerphone just because it's kind of lacking in overall volume output. During our time testing out handset, we didn't notice any major fluctuations with signal strength, and on top of that, it didn't drop any phone calls. Using the handset strictly with HSPA Plus connections, its battery life is average at best. On a full charge, we're able to get a solid day of normal usage, but again, if you're going to be in an LTE area and use that constantly, you could expect its 1800 milliamp hour battery to produce lower results. Another feature worth pointing out on the HTC 8X and Windows Phone 8 in general is the new tap and send feature found with it. So basically it relies on NFC, so you could just tap both devices against one another and you'll be able to share a variety of different multimedia content. At $100 a two-year contract, there's a lot to like about the HTC 8X just because it has that great balance between price point, design, and performance, and really will stand out to be a wonderful Windows Phone device. But when you compare this to some of the smartphone elites out there, it might have a difficult time trying to keep up. We definitely love the design of the handset. It's by far the biggest and most attractive thing about it. It's so out of the box and uncharacteristic design that we've seen from HTC, but at the same time, it kind of makes it very compelling looking thing. Beyond that, as far as the Windows Phone 8 experience is concerned, we're again kind of disappointed with their overall offering. We were expecting something a little bit more comprehensive, but it doesn't really drastically differentiate itself or improve itself much compared to previous versions of the platform, and still kind of lagging in terms of the functionality found with its main rivals in Android. But regardless of that, it's still a wonderful device. If you were looking for a Windows Phone handset, this is definitely something you want to take a look at. So if you'd like to learn more about the HTC 8X, guys, you can check out our website, phonearena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.